They woke to a sound like thunder. Then the world began to fall. It was 1:22 a.m. on June 24, 2021, in Surfside, Florida. Just north of Miami Beach, Champlain Towers South stood facing the Atlantic. 12 stories of pale concrete and faded glass, home to over 100 residents. Some were retirees. Others were vacationers. Most were asleep. None of them knew they were living above a ticking clock. Beneath the building, something gave way. It began on the pool deck, a cracking sound, barely heard over the hum of the city. A rupture in the concrete slab. Deep in the underground garage, a column split, unleashing a chain reaction. Concrete buckled, steel snapped. Surveillance footage showed cars vanishing as the floor collapsed beneath them. Dust gushed into the garage like a tidal wave of ash. Then silence. For 13 seconds, the building stood, wounded and groaning. Then came the second collapse. The center section of the tower shuddered, then dropped. Floor slammed into floor. A wall of debris surged outward as the eastern wing sheared off and folded into itself. Lights blinked out. Windows burst. In the time it took to draw a breath, dozens of lives were buried beneath 13 million pounds of rubble. People from neighboring buildings ran out barefoot, phones shaking in their hands. Some thought it was an earthquake, others a bomb. What they saw instead was a chasm of dust and rebar where half a building had stood moments earlier. And the rest of Champlain Towers South still stood, just barely, trembling like a broken tooth. The first firefighters arrived within minutes. Sirens screamed through the dark as they rushed toward the collapse zone. What they found was devastation. Entire bedrooms suspended in midair, beds torn open, appliances jutting from broken slabs. The lobby was gone. The pool deck was buried. Survivors clung to balconies, trapped above a crater. Inside the rubble there were voices. Rescuers began digging. They used hands, shovels, dogs. They listened for tapping. They whispered into cracks. For the first day, there was hope. A teenager was pulled out. Then a child. But the pile shifted constantly. Fires smoldered. The scent of burning plastic mixed with salt, dust, and blood. Every movement risked collapse, and the hours kept passing. Families gathered behind the police tape, clutching photographs. Some held hope. Others already knew. Names were read. Rooms were assigned. Silence followed each discovery. In the end, 98 people died, crushed in beds, entombed in hallways, suffocated beneath slabs of their own home. Entire families vanished. A woman had just kissed her husband goodnight. A young couple slept beside their toddler. A mother had just arrived to visit her son, and beneath it all was the question, how? The warnings had been there. In 2018, an engineer's report documented major structural damage beneath the pool deck. Exposed rebar, water intrusion, cracking concrete, failed waterproofing. He warned it would worsen, but repairs were delayed. For 3 years, residents argued over cost. Estimates ballooned, meetings dragged on. Some said it wasn't urgent, others feared the bill. Meanwhile, salt water seeped into the foundation. The concrete crumbled, steel rusted, quiet and unseen. Even in the final weeks, workers had begun patching balconies and sealing cracks. But they were too late. The structure was already dying. Investigators uncovered a grim picture. The slab lacked proper slope. Water had pooled for years, corroding steel. There was no single failure, just decades of neglect, missed warnings, and delayed action. No fire, no bomb, no storm. Just a building allowed to rot from the inside out. The Surfside collapse triggered change. Florida rewrote its inspection laws. Condos now require recertification every 10 years. Dozens of buildings were evacuated. Repairs that were once optional became mandatory. But for the people of Champlain Towers South, it was too late. The ground had already given way, and the people inside never had a chance. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.